I'm Dennis McGinn, founder and CEO of vehicle reconditioning and communications company Rapid Recon. 3 times a month at your place, we visit guests at their place to engage in conversations about the auto industry. Today, we're talking with David Sickels, the editor of The Buzz, an EV-focused media brand. The Buzz is dedicated to delivering the latest electric vehicle news in innovations to the OEM, aftermarket manufacturers, technicians, and consumers. David is also the editor of Fleet Equipment and Tire Review magazines. So let's just get after it. Welcome, David, and let's kind of dive into this topic. My first question is, when is it time for the dealers to get serious about preparing for electronic vehicles?
Sure. So, Dennis, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I've been excited about this for a while now. Usually I am in your position, so this feels a lot different to be the one being interviewed instead of the one doing the interviewing. So when is it time for dealers to get serious, stocking, maintaining, repairing EVs? The first thing that I want to make clear is that this is not at this point a kind of sky is falling scenario where you've got to scramble and get on this immediately. My biggest advice is that you just have to observe your environment and see what's going on around you. So look at the cars on the road, look at what's coming in. Are charging stations being set up at different businesses around you? Is your competition getting into EVs? Those are all going to be things that are going to influence whether or not it's the right time for you to get into this. Of course, if you're on either side of the country, you might be seeing a lot more of them. Middle America, probably not as much. Now, keep in mind, Kelley Blue Book data from Q3 of 2021 showed new vehicle sales were down 13.4% year over year, but electric vehicle sales were up, and that includes hybrids, all electric. But those were up 60% in that same time frame. Now that doesn't equate to millions of vehicles, but we're talking about somewhere between 300 and 400,000 electrified vehicles on the roads. So just from that time frame. So just keep an eagle eye out. I don't think there's a huge amount of pressure there quite yet. Just know that it's out there and that base is growing.
If I were focusing my energy on getting new customers in, whether it's Tesla or whether it's the other guys that are bringing product in, like, are getting ready to, like crazy, I'd be waving that gas price flag out there like nuts, because it's a thing they see all the time. So what are your thoughts about that?
Yes. Well, first of all, I would say I totally agree with you. I mean, the gas prices is just a really it's a really big issue for a lot of people, and especially people of that age. I'm in my early 30s myself, and it's a concern that I have as well for my next vehicle. Do I want to buy another gas guzzler, or do I want to move into a hybrid or an EV where I can not only is it possibly going to be cheaper to be running my vehicle, but also we're talking about getting into kind of the infrastructure kind of scenario where the country at least with this administration is trying to move in that direction. And do I want to be a part of that at this time? Is it the right time to invest in that?
You kind of live in this world and kind of see both sides, and I guess it's going to happen no matter what. I mean, we're going to transition away from fossil fuel burning as fast as, both politically and as what do I say, economically feasible, I would say. Is that sound about right?
No, yeah. I mean, there's the exciting thing about reporting on every day is that the innovations, the technology, just the political talk about it. Everything is changing on essentially a daily basis, and you can't really wake up the next morning knowing what was true yesterday is true today. I'm seeing all kinds of things, especially when it comes to batteries or charging of different companies, especially the OEs. They're investing billions of dollars into making stronger batteries that will last longer or will give you a longer charge. And it's just one of those things where um, I kind of see this getting to a place where right now where our range for a lot of these vehicles is somewhere between 200 and 400 miles if you're lucky. I see this really progressing to be more toward the 5, 6, maybe even 700-mile range. Not that far into the future. I think that's when it's going to start to be really exciting, when people can, when that range anxiety kind of goes away a little bit, and you don't have to worry about, pulling off to the side of the road for an hour to charge in the middle of your, getting to your family vacation or whatever it might be.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Your terms from the buyer standpoint, you're writing about this a lot, and so you get probably a lot of feedback from your readers and things. I mean, what are the top couple of things that they want to know more about? Make an informed decision.
Yeah. Infrastructure is one of the big ones. You know, it, when you're talking about infrastructure, you're not just talking about, hey, where's the nearest charging station? You're actually talking about the grid and how much can the grid handle? If I buy an electric vehicle, and so do my neighbors, and so does everyone in my neighborhood, and we're all trying to charge our vehicles at the same time overnight, all of a sudden that becomes not the most cost-effective way for us all to be charging. So, that is a big concern for buyers, and I think that's actually on the minds of a lot of people. Range anxiety, like we already talked about, that's another one, and kind of where things are moving. Are there different battery technologies that work better than others? Which OEs are using what, and what are they looking into, and what are they investing? And then the overall cost, that's probably one of the biggest ones, is just, when is the price of these things going to come down? When is it actually going to be the right time where the cost parity is kind of in line with what you could be getting for internal combustion engine vehicle right now. I'm sure you're aware that most expensive, or most EVs for sale right now tend to be more expensive than their internal combustion engine counterparts. When is that actually going to come down? So those are probably, I would say, kind of the top three.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think there's going to be? I mean, a lot of people think. I have a car that you would call a mild hybrid. The manufacturer, Mercedes, calls it a mild hybrid. Although it won't run on the battery. I mean, it's just their way of saying, hey, you have a 48-volt system when you're at the stop light, so it won't jerk when you come off the line. And so I appreciate some of that, but I'm wondering, because a lot of people have been buying Priuses for a long time, and even before that, some early ones in here, and I'm wondering, when do you think people will start to realize that a Prius is not really an EV? It's kind of a pseudo EV. So, and where people, right? I mean, you explain to them, okay, you're really, really helping the environment. You're doing a great job and all that stuff, but you realize that what you're doing, you're burning more fossil fuel to make your gas, to make your batteries go farther and things like that. So, any thoughts about how you must struggle with? Okay, how do I not throw cold water on all the Prius customers, but start to make them realize that that's not really an electric vehicle?
Yeah. I mean, it is electrified to a degree, but it's not really what most people are thinking of when they're thinking of an electric vehicle. And if I can be totally honest, I really think that hybrids they're a good kind of transition. It's a good transition from the ICE vehicle to the full battery EV. I don't know that hybrids are going to be something that are going to stick around for a very long time. I mean, we'll obviously see them for the next decade for sure, but as these automakers start to transition more of their resources into making these EVs and more customers become interested in them, I just don't see hybrids being, as plentiful on the roads as they are now.
So, David, while we're talking about this subject, there are a couple of things that keep coming up:
Mhm.
technicians and batteries and battery disposition of batteries. So maybe you could comment for a second on that in terms of the technicians. What where are they going to get the technicians to work on these cars, and who's going to educate them?
Yeah, sure. So, if EVs is something that your dealership is interested in, you obviously need the technicians that are going to be able to work on them. And uh, those technicians are going to need some very specific training to work on these vehicles because, obviously battery electric vehicles, they're operating at a very high voltage. So, these technicians, they need to know how to safely shut them down or disconnect these systems within these vehicles before working on them. Or, even if you're just working on one of these high voltage components individually. Um, I don't think you necessarily have to go overboard. I don't think you need to have every single technician necessarily trained on these unless you're just servicing a ton of them or if you're a Tesla dealership or something like that. But it wouldn't hurt to have all of your technicians at least have kind of a basic understanding of EV safety, EV precautions, things like that. Um, but any technician that's working with or around a lithium ion battery, you're going to need that battery safety course. These courses on working with these high voltage systems. I mean, the motors, inverters, HVAC systems, all of these are going to be have some kind of high voltage that can be super dangerous. So that's something to keep in mind. As far as who's providing that education, it really depends on what type of training you're going to want your technicians to have. Um, you know, OEs like Tesla, for example, they have their own programs. So if you're getting into a specific make, that's obviously a great way to go. But if you are doing like body work, for example, there are specific organizations that have training for that. iCar comes to mind when it comes to body car. They have some really great just training opportunities for that specific branch of the aftermarket. It's also going to depend a lot where you're from. If you want to do in-person training, a lot of that is taking place on the West Coast right now. So if that's an expense that you can do, that's something that you might want to keep in mind.
What and follow on is how are these batteries being disposed of today? I mean, obviously they have lifetimes, so many cycles, just like any other battery. It's probably a different profile, but what how is this handled today? I mean, we know for lead acid batteries they can recover the lead, and so that is uh, there's a whole market for that. What about these batteries?
Yeah, these batteries are a whole different beast, and I would almost call this subject almost the kind of Achilles heel of EVs right now because there just isn't a great EV battery solution out there that isn't going to end up being not great for the environment. There are recycling facilities in the US, The problem is that there aren't nearly enough of them for the amount of these batteries being produced. At last I counted, there are fewer than a dozen that are really doing this as a serious business. So, I mean, there are kind of second life concepts out there. People have thought about using them in conjunction with, solar panel systems, or maybe as some kind of, low cost energy storage. A lot of these OEs consider the end of a battery's life when there's about 80%. So, it's still a viable source of energy. But, I've talked to people who, dealers have potentially a warehouse just full of these batteries, not really knowing what to do with them at this point. Hopefully it won't be long until recyclers come up with a way to repurpose or reuse these batteries. Hopefully we can get into some kind of cycle where we're essentially repurposing them forever without having to reintroduce very many new raw materials, but we're not quite at that point yet. And as you know, lithium ion batteries are toxic. They can cause fires. Those fires can spread quickly. They're not easy to put out. So the danger does increase as you decide to store more of them in one place together. So I would say for anyone who is doing this, definitely make sure that you are working with a partner who knows what they're doing as far as safe storage of these. You're going to want emergency precautions in place, like water lines or other things that can help safeguard against that kind of danger.
Yeah. Yeah, this is potentially really scary issue. We've seen some of that already with lithium, with personal devices and things. I mean, phones that have, you get the battery drawing, or you're charging or drawing the battery, you're producing a lot of heat. And if you get two of those devices close together, all of a sudden you've got a potential fire hazard going on. So I think people generally understand that. I know the airlines and so on have tried to get people more aware of that, but you can imagine in a vehicle, and I think some of the early Teslas had some problems, if I remember right, that they had to deal with some fires and things. But that the disposal, the whole disposal and recycling cover and how to do that. So when we talk, maybe you can dig into that a little bit. That there are ways to do that, and different approaches to kind of second or third or fourth, or just extracting the basic materials. So that'd be great. Okay, well, thank you again. Appreciate your time, David, and we could talk about this for a long time. You probably get bored with it a bit, but
don't get bored at all.
No. I mean, I sit back and just think of the physics of the whole thing, and think, okay, this is fascinating. Both, it's a huge step forward, and I think the whole environment thing is potentially a really big win, but the road to getting there just seems to have a lot of potholes.
It does. Absolutely. That's a really great way to put
it. Yeah. Okay, thank you again, and we will see you then down line about April.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Dennis.
Okay. Thank you, David. Appreciate your time very much.